You know, it's going to be one of those parachute moments where Tom Cruise is going to fly in very soon. So Saura will join us once he gets here. But we will begin. Give me a second. First, I don't know about you guys, I had to check what the word continuum meant. I had to check how to pronounce it as well. So it describes the idea that different forms of capital, financial, human, social, cultural, intellectual, and political, are interconnected and often convert into each other. So first, I wanted to ask Dexter, as a wealth manager, is structuring a client's portfolio across this continuum important, and how have you been executing this balance between pure return and pure impact? We basically want to know, how can we all better align private wealth with philanthropic purposes through our investments?
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. How about a shout out? All good?
Energy, right. energy, guys. Energy.
Let's keep the energy there. All right. Good morning, everyone. So Dexter here. Yeah. So it's just like how we deal with individuals on a daily basis. You know, we tell them about doing things like, you know, donating to charities and all that. It doesn't have to be binary. You know, it should be something that you consider as part of your overall decisions in terms of making your investment work harder, right? So typically we look at three different segments of that. The first one is, of course, your core portfolio, the one that gives you your traditional asset class, which gives you the returns that you need. The second one is where you start to be a little bit nicer, a little bit more concessionary. That's where you can add a little bit, you can do a little bit more charitable, more impact investing, but less so of the returns. And of course, the last one is you really go for the impact investing. But like I said, it doesn't have to be binary. What you can do is you can really start to build into your day-to-day consideration of how you structure your portfolio.
So you're saying it's actually split up into three different categories?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to structure it well, you always have to deal with the daily bread and butter to make sure that your family office, you know, your basic returns, whether is it wealth preservation, so on and so forth, is taken care of. So that's where the core portfolios, the traditional asset classes like from equities, real estate, all these is being structured. Then once you have that sorted out, you can channel some of the capital or the returns from some of this to go into the second layer, which is something more concessionary, that you are not chasing after returns, but you can afford to take a little bit, more risk and make something more meaningful. And of course, once you have that sorted out, you can actually look into something that you don't really look at it more from a return, but really more from an impact perspective.
Well, thank you for the advice. I'm very glad. I like doing a how-to type panel, so I hope people will walk away and you learn something. So for Jeff, how does the VC world view the capital continuum in general, and how do you balance it out? Because there are so many factors that I mentioned earlier.
So one of the type of companies that VCs get the most excited about are the types of companies that are providing so much value to the community that the community members are very deeply engaged with the platform the companies have built, and they are adding value back into the community. So there's many examples of this, from some of the older companies such as Reddit to Figma, where the community is just very engaged with the company, and because they're adding value to the community engagement comes back and adds value to the company, and it's a cycle that ends up just driving very, very large scaled outcomes. So this combination between the business side and the community side can be extremely important from the venture capital perspective.
I tend to always think about this, that an Uber or a Grab will actually never die because the community needs it so much, despite its business mechanics and foundations not necessarily always being there. What's your view on that? Like, will the community always be able to ensure the survivability of companies like that?
It really depends on the company. Those business models you mentioned, sometimes they're subsidized by the VC money in the first place, and so they have to find their way to a sustainable business, where the platforms that people are building on directly, like Discord and things like that, those communities are much more sustainable potentially in the longer run, regardless of the other economics.
Yeah, I hear you. So since the topic at hand also covers amplify purpose, for the capital to be truly impactful, the metrics actually have to go beyond IRR, guys. So Dexter, are there standardized impact metrics that you are seeing private capital demand today? And what is the biggest challenge in verifying those outcomes in Asia's diverse digital markets?
I'm sure most of you here are familiar with the global matrix that is being used or recommended by IRIS Plus or even GIIN, or to a certain extent, even the 17, the 17 SDGs. But the question really is, how do you then use some of these very common metrics, but yet when you're trying to collate the data from the ground or from the projects that you are investing in, that is the real challenge. And every sector has got different ways of measuring, and that is only at the sector. And when you try to collate across multiple jurisdictions where the data may not be clean, that is really where the big challenge is. So I think as a start, in the absence of getting clean data, I think before you start going into any project, it's important to understand how do you measure the outcome. And you start by creating the project with measurable outcomes, and then you work together with the partners or even the local government to be able to distill out some of these numbers. If not, by the end of it, if you try to collate the numbers without already putting in place some of these measurement tools, that's when you will find that it's going to be a lot more challenging.
But how about over time? So if I were to evaluate and see the outcome now, is that the same metrics I'm going to use in the following year, in the following 5 years, in the following 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it really depends on the size and the impact of the project. For example, if you talk about digital access to banking needs, you can't measure it on a 1-year basis. You have to do cross-sectional kind of measurement, and it also depends on where is the scale of your deployment. Is it within just one country? Is it just within one community? Or is it within a certain scope that you want to measure, right? So it really depends on the size of the project. But I would say that the consistency in terms of the data is important, because it allows you to build your analysis model around it.
Yeah, I think that's super useful. Jeff, which digital sectors or technology areas in Asia today do you believe is ripe for high impact VC investment that will amplify purpose and serve returns as well? This question's unique because we don't know if VCs are just returns focused or actually able to amplify purpose at the same time.
I think to be honest, the best VCs are always going to be return focused. If you ask the VCs to be impact focused, then you're probably not going to get your money back. So you have to be careful with that. But in terms of looking at what's possible in the world where there could be a strong positive impact, you have to think what's possible now that wasn't possible before. And one of the areas where Asia's always spent more than the rest of the world has been on the private education tutoring side. And one of the interesting things in technology today is that the AI is able to act as a private tutor. And now imagine, instead of kids having to go drill in these lessons for hours on hours a day, if they had programs that could guide them and tell them, listen, you're weak in this fundamental part of math. The reason you're not understanding pre-calculus is because you don't understand fractions well enough. Let's go back and review fractions before you go and try to master this more complicated math. And with these personalized tutors in education is an area where it seems like Asia should be potentially ready to embrace that type of thing, and it would have a very positive impact, getting every kid in this region a personalized tutor that could help them not only learn a lot more, but also not have to spend time in their childhood doing the drills that are often forced upon them.
So you do think that in this respect, VCs could gain but also amplify purpose?
This is an area where, yes, this is where it's both ripe for disruption and where there would be a positive impact. But you want to make sure that those two are actually aligned and not just go blindly chasing after only impact.
Great. I mentioned to everyone that Tom Cruise will be parachuting in. Sarah, please join us. He's as handsome as Tom Cruise, so the wait was worth it.
Sorry, moderator.
No, not at all. Like I said, we will wait for Tom Cruise anytime. So actually, Sarah, we are going to actually parachute you right into this question as well. So we were talking about amplifying purpose and how that has to go beyond IRR. And my question for you from the family office respect is, what are the financial and non-financial metrics TPC, which is the family office Sarab is at, is tracking to measure your impact in Asia's digital future so that other family offices here can also learn from it?
Thank you. I would say, first of all, I work on the corporate side of Tsao Pao Chee or TPC. Have a connect to the family office, but was part on the corporate side. And we have our own framework of impact, which was published in the Impact Investing book, which was written by our chairman. And that specifically track on 4 parameters. One is advocacy, investments, business, our business transformation, and philanthropy. Maybe a different perspective than an IIR or a return on, or maybe an impact focus, which a financial organization or a finance person will look at it. I think we start on an ideological perspective first,
Right.
and then look at some of the pillars of the organization and how it will help us in business transformation journey.
So at TPC, the mission is to serve the well-being of life and create wealth at the same time. I'm going to say thank you for actually trying to do that for humanity. This is a 4th generation family office as well.
Yeah, it's a 4th generation, led by the 4th generation steward, has been there for 120 years. And that mission really guides all the investments, well-being and the flourishing of all lives, and creating prosperity at the same time as well. Hard to do, difficult to do,
Yeah.
not easy, but we are trying.
Yeah, because how are you prioritizing financial gains against this mission that you have then?
I would say it's a bit of both, because you will prioritize a return on investment from the investment side. But the other part of it is also how do you do business and what kind of business you will do.
Got it.
We are in a well-being business. We have transitioning into a well-being business. Transitioning into a business which focuses on green economy and blue economy. Have divested from some of the businesses which were polluting, but divested from some of the businesses which were not adding or were only looked at as a return on investment kind of perspectives. And those 6 pillars guide the business transformation, but also guides the return on investment.
I hope after this, when we leave this room, all of you will be applying these principles. It's very important. All right, now let's move on to scaling inclusive digital innovations like fintech for the unbanked or edtech for remote communities. These often require working with governments and multilaterals. We have different digital ecosystems and regulatory landscapes from Southeast Asia to South Asia. Jeff, you are based in Vietnam and have first-hand experience with Southeast Asia landscape. What regulatory or policy developments in Asia would most effectively de-risk these impact-first ventures and encourage more VC investment?
Well, when you think about the type of investment that could help the most people and the type of technology that's possible today that could provide the most value to the most people, one of the biggest areas is actually health tech. Right now, we have a lot of the LLMs are very close to being at the level of doctors and their diagnostic capabilities. And there's a reason they're not being fully deployed is because doctors in every single country in Southeast Asia and frankly the rest of the world have a near monopoly on the ability to provide these services in return for payment. And if the governments wanted to experiment more and allow for AI-enabled healthcare combined with technicians and not doctors who had to go through years and years of training, then you could bring high-quality healthcare to many, many more people at a much lower cost if any of the governments were willing to push up against the doctor lobby. So there's a lot of interesting things like that that you can do if people are willing to think outside the box and say, hey, what's possible now with technology that we weren't able to do before that can help a lot of people?
I'm definitely learning a lot. Dexter, what are a few primary regulatory or geopolitical risks that impact-driven digital ventures face across the region, and how do you advise clients to hedge against these risks that impact them?
I think one of the key risks is definitely geopolitical as well as local regulatory rules, especially in certain jurisdiction where the government of the day changes, and that's when you see the implementation will just come to the halt, right? So I think as we all finance philosophy, right, it's always about diversify. So to be broadly diversified is definitely the key principle of adopting this approach. The second is you want to be able to stress test or scenario test your portfolio where you have diversified across multiple jurisdictions, because you have some sense of what if there is this government change over there, who are the likely political leaders that's coming up, and with that, what is the stance they're going to take. So this will have a very direct impact to the portfolios that you are in. And there's a lot of research materials that's being provided to allow you to be able to synthesize some of this information. And the last one really is about how do you then work with some of those local partners that already have this deep expertise and access to the right network that you want, and that allows you a quick access to already effectively gain access into that. That's one. And number two, the other way of diversifying or de-risking it is also to work with a couple of family offices together rather than to take on one project yourself. That is also another way. And of course, the last way is really for you to consider using a fund approach, because there are multiple funds out there that actually invest directly into some of these projects, and they are the ones who look at it on a day-to-day basis.
So those three things are probably what you say people need to walk away with and work together to be able to amplify this.
Yeah.
Saurabh, inclusive innovation means closing the digital divide while navigating these regulatory and political conflicts. As you invest in sophisticated platforms, how does TPC ensure that your capital is actually reaching and serving these remote last-mile populations that may actually lack the basic digital literacy or access to affordable connectivity?
I would say I will agree to what was mentioned by other panelists. I think there's a mixture on understanding the geopolitical dynamics. There's a mixture of understanding the technology and what kind of community or country you're operating in. There's another part which I always tend to look at, and maybe on a softer side, what kind of partner we are working on if we are deploying anything. Certainly, we don't go in on financial inclusion, maybe as a product, But we go in for sure on health aspects. We go in for carbon markets, carbon credits, which link to communities in general. It links to their livelihood. It links to they will be moving away from a certain kind of livelihood to a different kind of livelihood. And for that, I think there's a bit of both. Of how do you build the capacity, build the capability of the partner you're working in, but you also understand from the gaps from that particular partner in. There's a bit more than just investment decision or an ROI decision. For impact investing, we do go in and maybe from a philanthropic standpoint, we look at the first risk or de-risking capital,
right.
Providing what kind of blend for that particular topic. Like, I do think that if in terms of digital inclusion or the financial inclusion, in general, the region has come in a big way, and you really need to look at the technology stacks which has been deployed, or you need to take a flight to a different region to understand how advanced digitally Asia has become. But there are much more than it's just a means, I feel, of what other livelihoods and what other kind of businesses is that particular community is involved in, making a good understanding of that, leveraging a partner. I will put it right up there along with a technology stack or an investment impact you are trying to get from it.
Right. I think with that, it segues very nicely into the next question about next generation infrastructure and digital platforms. Jeff, can you share an example of a digital infrastructure company that provides market rate returns, but also creates a significant public good that fulfills a philanthropic purpose?
So I think it's important to take a step back and realize that some of the most successful impact companies have actually never been branded as impact in the first place. So one of the biggest companies that's been helping the communities all across Southeast Asia is Meta, which through WhatsApp and through Facebook groups has been uniting many different people. And one of the companies that's going to be connecting the rural people to the internet is Starlink, which again comes from SpaceX, and it's not a company that was ever founded as an impact type investment. So when you think about how you can have the biggest positive impact on the world, it doesn't actually have to start as an impact type company or investment.
Yeah, that's such a good idea for us to not just have to look for impact when we're actually investing in impact. Dexter, do you see philanthropic or concessional capital being used to de-risk commercial investment to build next generation technology? Basically, are you able to share an example where blended finance structures have been used in Asia, where we see how the first tranche may have been managed by a cascading model between VC and family offices pumping in that capital?
Yeah, so I think there are multiple cases or industries that have been proven. So one of them are like your AI data centers. The other one that is more closer to home is like your edutech. Right, a leading or classic example is the one that is being led by the Asian Development Bank. So if you look at it, they have a 98-page printout. They talk about how they have employed this. So I was encourage everyone to take a read at it. So these are just one of the many examples, and even closer to home. For example, in our company, what we do is we believe in not just being the wealth managers for those who can afford us to that extent, right? But what we want is to empower individuals to be able to gain access to good independent advice by building a full robo-advisory platform whereby they can not only, do their investments, but they get daily nudges to deal with their, their mortgage, so on and so forth. And that is one way that we as a company or every one of you can start. And with that, once we go to the next stage, that's when we work with the VCs and all that to bring it to the next level beyond just Singapore itself. So hopefully this is just one example to encourage and to inspire every one of you to also take the first leap into, starting yourself, right?
So it's not all loss making. So it's not really like passing the buck around, like, oh, I'm a VC, let me get the family office to throw the money in first. Oh yeah, it looks good, let me now put my money in.
And just to add on, if you look at the new generation of like investors or even second or third gen family office owners, they believe in doing good. They believe in saving the world. They believe in going, paperless. So it doesn't mean that when you embark on a project like the example I just shared of my company, it doesn't mean that it's going to be loss-making. In fact, if anything, it will attract them because, number one, they are aligned with the social cause that you are standing for, So it doesn't mean that impact investing means it's a loss-making. Don't go away with that wrong idea. Make impact investing something that you can do because you believe in, and with that, the profits and all that will naturally come.
Got it. So Saurabh, TPC, as I mentioned earlier, is currently 4th generation stewardship. As wealth is passed to the next generation in Asia as well as at your family office, the demand for impact is increasing. How is TPC integrating the values and interests of the next generation into the core investment strategy? How does this new mandate affect the kind of digital assets you prioritize over traditional ones?
I deal with this every day, so I think I like this question. And I would say if at TPC, this question is no next gen, but now gen kind of a question. During my interview stage, I was asked this. I asked this question: Why do you want to hire me? I'm a climate person. I've worked all my life in climate. So the family principal said for humanity. They were running a business for humanity. We're running investments for humanity. What does that mean? I think that where we tend to look at it in a more granular basis. So I look at blended finance facilities day in, day out, and I agree with the question. I agree with your observation that it's not that people, I have been in a number of conversations where people look at family office or philanthropy as a free money, or 3% or 4% return on investments for their return after 3 years, 4 years. And I tend to not look at that deal, but really what's your stack and what particular thematic area you're looking for. It can be related to digitalization. I think AI and digitalization in some regards will be in all of the sectors. But really taking a generational view, what is a field or sector coming in for the next generation, what we can do in green economy, how we are transitioning from a commodity-based outlook to a conservation, protection, and creation of multiple revenue for green economy. How we are transitioning for an ocean economy, which is focused on shipping and fisheries, to multiple aspects of it.
Got it.
And that is essentially, I will say, a key focus of the next generation, but also of the executives.
Right. So we're going to end this panel strong by a quick fire round, and I'm going to have a very big call to action for the room, because Saurabh, Jeff, and Dexter, in one sentence, is going to tell us what is that one thing each of us really have to do, the must do now, to amplify purpose and scale innovation in Asia. Jeff, he was very ready with his microphone, so.
Well, that was slightly different than the question I thought you were going to ask, but I would say that the biggest way to have a positive impact on the economy in Asia is just to raise total factor productivity in general. And if you are doing good, if you're making people wealthier, then the positive impact will flow from there.
The positive impact will flow from there. Dexter?
Well, I think I sort of been talking about some of these points.
Yes.
So let me just round it up, right? Don't make impact investing just an afterthought, You see this as part of the asset class, see this as a meaningful endeavor that you can do to really create, differences in people's life.
Wow.
I will second that thought. Impact investing is not a new asset class, but is the way of doing investments, according to me. My one sentence for that, don't look at the ecosystems for investments. Don't look at individual products or projects. Own the ecosystem, and then the products and projects will come.
And with that, I thank the three of you. I don't know about you guys. I've learned a lot. I'm going to walk away and become the best philanthropist ever. But I want to say thank you again for sharing all your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a photo together.